Grogu. I'm Jesse Gilstrap.
And I'm Drew Cordell, and you're listening to TV Binge Drinking Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 6, Chapter 14, The Tragedy. And it's a tragedy. It took 10 years to say that, but I'm sipping on some coffee in the Grogu mug. Got the holiday blend Starbucks again, but this time I've got a little bit of peppermint mocha coffee mate creamer, and it's not quite as good as the Starbucks peppermint mocha, but actually getting it from there, but it's still pretty good, pretty close to what I need. So
I'm drinking green tea with boba tea.
uh,
I'm supporting one of our local cafes, etc. Coffee. Got the what they call bubble tea with kiwi and mango mixed in, the iced green tea
very cool.
with boba in it. And I felt like that would be appropriate to get to talk about this particular episode. And on top of that, just in general, I think it's a good idea to support local places, especially in this time.
Right, yeah.
So, regardless of which, cheers, my friend.
Here. Cheers.
So, I was debating getting some type of boba tea or possibly figuring out some type of mariachi drink for this episode. Ended up going the boba route because it's easy to acquire, but I do have to say that knowing that Robert Rodriguez was going to direct something this season and vaguely feeling like he's probably not going to direct the season finale,
Right,
not
right.
knowing categorically, but still kind of having it in the back of my head. Next week's is supposed to be our guy Rick, which they've already teased by bringing up Bill Burr again.
Yes, yeah.
It's like, oh, I guess that's Rick's thing. They're gonna bring back a character that he had written in the first season. Cool, along with the mechanical arm and gun.
Yeah, and more Gungan jokes, maybe.
And as we are going through this episode, it didn't take me long to be like, this is Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah,
It just felt like his style.
right.
And on top of that, his incredible action sense.
Yes,
And written again by John Favreau. And boy, did he give him a perfect episode in a lot of ways, but specifically just thinking about what type of episode should you give Robert Rodriguez, and it's just a really tight, terrific action story. I think it's worth pointing out how sparse a lot of the stories have been. Obviously, there are some big shots and big moments,
right.
but a lot of the storytelling and a lot of where they are locationally is pretty small and pretty tight, and it's just clever utilization of what you have in front of you. And I wonder at what stage, they showed the directors of season one all communing with each other
Yeah.
in the behind the scenes stuff for season one. At what stage do you think they brought Rodriguez into the mix? Was he there just for this episode, or was he there, for more of the ride? Because Rodriguez knows how to make stuff with more limited means and
Right.
clever use of new technology. And this whole season, and I'm not trying to say it is Rodriguez, but like this whole season has upped the quality in terms of knowing how to use their technology
Right.
and mixing it in with just a lot of production value and enter this episode, and it's just really good looking, fast paced, fun episode with big, beautiful moments too. Like it's just there's almost too much to talk about, like in terms of my stuff that I loved about this episode, but just on a fundamental level, I have to give props to my man Robert Rodriguez, and my favorite movie of his, Desperado.
Yeah.
But I'm just a fan of his in general,
Yeah.
and Mr. Spy Kids himself, and just yeah, I was so happy to see his name at the end of this one.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of cool, like recently, because he directed Battle Angel Alita, which was much better than I expected it to be. Uh, but B was really cool to see him getting to play with James Cameron's toys.
Yeah,
uh, and kind of seeing him kind of play with a budget he's not used to, but being able to really thrive too with that, and probably, you know, I think he still probably could have made a compelling movie with the same script and everything else with maybe less too, because he's so smart with budgets, and because he's had to, El Mariachi was made on a shoestring budget, and that movie's terrific. Great action movie. Desperado upped the budget just a little bit, and it's just almost a whole different level. But it's really cool to kind of see him play with Lucasfilm's toys now, and even in a more limited budget capacity, but to still have the iconography to play with, really, and see it in his style is just a treat. And I was like you, I mean, it took me a little bit, about halfway through the episode, to be like, okay, I'm about 90% sure this is his episode. Uh, just a couple of the act. This is also, I think, is this easily the shortest episode? Uh, like 30 something minutes.
that's his style, man.
Yeah, but and I didn't honestly feel like it was that. I mean, it was a rush, but I didn't think, oh, that was too short. You know, I think it was pretty perfectly paced.
It doesn't feel like you're rushing. It works.
Yeah, right, right. It is a rush, but it's not rushed. It's a blast. But yeah, one of the things that I really liked about this episode is, where we start, and it starts off with this kind of, calm moment between Grogu and Mando, and he's encouraging him to use the Force, and to train him, to try to train him as much as he can for somebody that doesn't have, the abilities and the Force that a Jedi has, or that Grogu has. But Mando continues to be that nurturing parent for Grogu, and I really enjoy uh, that moment for this episode, because it kind of gives it a little bit of character, a little bit of emotion and gravitas that the big moments of this episode need to really sell them even more. And I think it works perfectly. But when we get to Planet Typho, it it just takes off immediately, um, and literally, because in another meme worthy moment, Mando says, we're gonna go with the windows down, and then he gets Grogu gets the ride in Mando's arms while he's flying with the jetpack. So that's great.
Honestly, that felt like a Rob Rodriguez moment to me as well.
Yeah, yeah, and the reaching into the Force now that. we know that it was his episode. The way that was done too kind of feels like him. Just the force field and just the effects there. It looked. Uh, I was kind of it's very. It's just a force field and that he's surrounded by while he's connected to the force. But it was just the way it was shot and the I guess the sense of awe that was given to it, it was really kind of cool, and it was something different for this episode. And before we get to the real meat of why this episode is so special, which you've already kind of alluded to with what you're drinking, but trying to keep spoilers. I mean, not if people are listening to this, they've watched it, but I'm trying to keep the big reveal kind of a little deeper in. But
I don't know why somebody who hadn't seen it would check out like, oh yeah, some people talking about
let's watch.
this entire episode for half an hour, 45
Yeah,
minutes, or
right,
however long we would talk, you know.
right, right.
Oh, they spoiled it for me.
Oh
Like,
no!
surprise.
But uh, one of the questions we have now is, did Grogu reach anyone? Did is there anyone a Jedi or even more sinister? Is there someone on the dark side that that felt his call? And of course, it wasn't answered this episode, and it ends on a cliffhanger. So we'll have to wait and see in these last two episodes of the season. Two episodes left, but we'll see what happens next. But again, I'm kind of still curious to see who Grogu connects with, and that was something that we kind of speculated about last episode, and I don't want to spend too much time uh, talking about it here because we really did, kind of cover everything. But I'm still kind of a believer that if you were going to get Luke Skywalker into your story, this would be the way to do it. Uh, but I don't know, I don't know if they have any interest in Luke being involved in this, if it's going to be a Ezra Bridger thing, or if it's going to be another character, or if it's not going to be anyone. We don't. There's no telling, but that question still uh, is very interesting. But now, I just want to say that I think this episode serves as a I told you so and a big middle finger to anyone over the last, let's see, nearly 40 years since Return of the Jedi came out. To anyone who has tried to downplay the coolness of Boba Fett. To anyone who is trying to say, oh, well, I've always hated Boba Fett. He's so stupid, even though I have his toy at home and I play with it every night. you know, one of the coolest characters, and I admit it was just one of those things. It was his look that made him so popular. It wasn't necessarily his character, but it was such a build up over the years, decades of popularity. And like with everything, there's detractors, but Boba Fett has remained one of the most popular characters in the entire Star Wars saga, going from everything. I think he's one of the most recognizable characters. Uh, people see it, they may not know much about Star Wars. They may not even know his name, but if they see Boba Fett's armor, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's from Star Wars." So, he's definitely an iconic character, and we knew we were going to get him. We didn't know if we were going to see him again this season because I figured that they weren't going to just uh, shrug off Tamura Morrison again, like just to have him turn around and look at the camera. But hey, Force Awakens, Mark Hamill, uh, doesn't is essentially on screen for maybe like 15 to 30 seconds or
Yeah.
whatever it is. So it wouldn't be the first time to just kind of be teased.
And they talked about a Boba Fett TV show, so that could have just been like a. By the way, tune into the Boba show whenever it comes
Right.
out.
Right. But now, well, the moment the moment when I knew this episode was going to be great, or at least was going to be fun, was when Slave One uh, appeared,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, um, I guess we're gonna get Boba Fett this episode, and it was just so cool to see the Slave One, and it was something I was wondering, it still hasn't been answered, and if they do the Boba Fett show, I'm sure we'll get answers. We don't really need the answers in this show, I guess, because to Mando, Boba Fett's not really a known entity, so why would he need to know how he survived on Tatooine after Return of the Jedi? He doesn't need to know that. So, therefore, I don't really expect it to be answered on this show. If they do a Boba Fett show, yeah, I would like to kind of have an explanation, but I don't really want the show to be about that either. you know, that's the thing I was going to say is that, there's some logical questions that my brain has. Like, oh, how did Boba keep his ship? Why didn't he just go and, you know, kill Cobb Vanth and get his armor back earlier? Like, those are all questions my brain asks later, but during, my brain was, it's Boba Fett. It's Boba Fett. Oh, look, it's Boba Fett. It was just that kind of effect.
And it kept building as it went too.
Yeah, exactly. It escalated. And they made him so cool, like, even without the armor. Like, I love kind of that vagabond look that he has. And then, another, Fennec Shand is back. And she, for some reason, and this, of course, answers the question of who it was that popped up at the end of the Gunslinger episode last season. It definitely was Boba Fett, and he, I guess, performed cyber surgery to make her a cyborg. Again, a question that I don't really care about. I mean, like, my brain poses it, but watching this episode, I don't really care because everything is just moving so fast. And but they've been palling around.
You know what should have happened is Christoph Waltz should have stepped in.
Yes.
It's like, oh yeah, I work with Boba. I helped out.
I helped make this creation. No, I really did enjoy her kind of coming back, but of course the star of this episode is Boba Fett, and to see the mayhem that he unleashes on those stormtroopers and the amount of crushed stormtrooper helmet and debris that just kept exploding. Um, the action was just so terrific. And I would have thought, I knew they were going to show him in the armor. I mean, you knew it. It already mentioned it. And I kind of like that Boba just wants his armor. And yeah, they kind of threaten the child, but they're like, okay, you're going to give me the armor. We'll have an agreement. We'll protect. We know that's what you care about. We'll protect. I kind of like that because he doesn't have to be, just it's more beneficial for him to have an alliance, I suppose. To be a little more, you know, tactical and smart than just killing machine. And as a bounty hunter, he would need to be that. So I didn't think it was out of character. But anyway, we knew he was going to put the armor on. But I was thinking, like, if he doesn't put the armor on this episode, I'm really still not going to be disappointed because he's so cool without it. But then he put it on, and and just we're already talking like this is already a great action episode. But the moment he put the armor on and came out and just started that through that thermal detonator and then popped up and just started taking out more stormtroopers and like my favorite bit is when he uses the rocket to take out the drop ships, and then he just turns to the camera while that's going on in the background. It's like, yeah, I'm awesome. Well, yes, you are. Like, I love that shot. Again, very Robert Rodriguez too. Uh, but no, I just seeing that armor, and of course we've already seen it this season, but to actually see it on Boba Fett and to actually see it in that kind of action and just him just showing who the real um, you know uh, Mando really could step his game up a little bit in terms of just the kick assery we see here because Boba Fett is just amazing, and I was completely taken back by just how awesome they made it. I was thinking like this could be a really cool episode with Boba Fett, but by the time he put the armor on, I was just I was I was in awe. They pulled it off. They really did, and in a better way than I would have ever guessed.
I'm gonna pick on the episode just a tiny bit, only to say that the previously on almost spoils. I mean, it does spoil the fact that you're gonna get Fennec Shand
Right.
in this episode, and kind of hints at the idea that it's gonna be Boba Fett as well, just by what all the previously on stuff is like. By the way, this is what's gonna be in this episode, and then it says the tragedy, and it's like, well, great, now I know all the stuff that's leading into this, kind of preparing me for the sort of episode this is going to be. And that doesn't diminish it, but there's just a tiny part of me that's like, man, I wished I didn't have the previously on
Yeah.
and maybe a different placement for the title. I don't know. Like it doesn't spoil anything exactly, but it does kind of.
Right.
How much cooler would it have been just to be watching and see the Slave One without the hint that it's going to be Boba Fett in this episode? I don't know.
Right.
It just that has less to do with the episode and more to do with the choices for previously on and so forth. But so that goes. I did like seeing Fennec Shand though again,
Yeah.
and I mentioned previously how like, oh, there's a tiny part of me that wishes the world of the show could stand on its own more than just always pulling back into lore.
Right.
So obviously this is the Boba Fett episode, and that's amazing and that's incredible. But I think it's worth pointing out that a lot of the rest of this episode is Mandalorian specific
Yeah.
characters and stuff, and like that works incredibly well. within the world of just this show. It's the story of this show and how Boba Fett factors into that show that helps make the episode even more special. Because now we're concerned about where the story's going to go moving forward.
Right.
And like, oh man, how's this going to play out? What exactly do they need Grogu for?
Yeah.
How are they going to get Grogu back from such a powerful figure, villain?
Right.
That's some good story motivation there that works out incredibly well in this episode. Seeing Moff Gideon come in full force, and as you texted me, terrifying baby talk
Right.
from Giancarlo Esposito. Oh, so sleepy.
Right.
Look at you. Like it's just really well played too, and it's those details that matter because you could just do this on another more basic level and it could still work and be fun, but when you have the flair of Giancarlo Esposito, it what really makes it sing. You have the character moment at the beginning of the episode that gives you emotional range. And talking about action again, uh, picking on the episode Siege,
Yeah.
uh, once more, picking on the episode in terms of like master shots, having a wide shot and swooping in and uh, coming in on a tracking shot, having variety of angles and shots to help make sense of your action geography.
Right.
I mean, come on, Rodriguez knows how to do this stuff, and he has those like wide shots, like swooping in on the action, and it just adds this sense of epicness, like seeing the stormtroopers, swooping in,
Yeah.
and seeing our characters being surrounded. The moments when Boba Fett come in are incredibly well played to,
Right.
enhance that excitement. When he comes in with the armor, it's just perfectly played. The shots of whenever they steal Grogu, the Dark Troopers come in. That's some terrifying but well played
Right.
sense of geography from everybody. And I have to also give props to Favreau bringing in some Attack of the Clones dialogue.
Right. Yeah.
Just a simple man just trying to make my way through the universe.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, that hit me in just the right spot. That callback.
Right.
Because it just shows you the world building and the character that goes within it.
Yeah.
Just great. Like they did Boba right, and they didn't just make him just a pure figure of action. They made him a character.
Right.
And I know we said before that if anybody could do it right, it's this crew, and having Filoni on board. Like Filoni's done Boba Fett in the past and respects Star Wars in general, but has specifically done that character really well as he was growing up
Right.
too. But seeing him as this post Return of the Jedi figure is just amazing. I love seeing that stormtrooper armor flying everywhere, just smash
Yeah.
armor flying. That's just fantastic. I also love that I can laugh at Din Djarin, our Mando, his casualness when approaching Grogu,
Yeah.
and like maybe there's a switch somewhere around this stone. That kind of attitude,
Right.
like not really understanding or appreciating the mysticism.
Yeah.
It's like, kid, can you wrap this up? Come on, we need to get out of here. We're in mortal danger. We need to
Right.
get on the run. He's is such just a more down to earth figure. Definitely out of sorts with the mystical part of this world. But the hints that we've gotten of that mystical stuff have been handled really well. Seeing Grogu, like you said, that sense of awe around him reaching out with the Force, not knowing exactly what that means moving forward, who he's being called out to, or who might hear or see. But really well done stuff. Just a great episode. And I you just have to say it's an A+ episode, and it's just, I, yeah, hard to resist this one for many reasons. Fun, action packed episode with emotional heft behind it. It has all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the pacing is incredible. I do have to mention too, though, that Rodriguez has essentially played with Lucasfilm toys before because he went to the set of Attack of the Clones and was there with George Lucas, who was pushing the use of digital cameras. And obviously, Lucas and Rodriguez, both in their own ways, have done significant pushes to using certain technologies, specifically digital technology. Rodriguez has been a big proponent of that stuff since then,
Right.
and he used the same cameras they used on Attack of the Clones to make Spy Kids 2 and 3, as well as Once Upon a Time in Mexico, uh, based on what he'd seen. And he's like, yeah, this is the future. This is what we need. And there were a lot of people in the industry that didn't believe that at the time, but they were big proponents of it.
Right.
And it's cool to see that Rodriguez has at different points been brought into other people's worlds as they come up with new technology, being allowed to play with those toys and show them off. Because, like you said, Alita Battle Angel, that's just really cool.
Yeah.
It's a good movie that I wish we could see more too. You know, some follow ups, but
Right.
doesn't seem terribly likely that we're going to get a sequel.
No.
And that's the only downfall of that movie.
Right.
Is like, oh, it leaves this open endedness to the story moving forward that we're probably not going to see, which stinks. But seeing Rodriguez on Mandalorian, all the cool technology that they have, new stuff that they have, he uses it well. He knows how to do this thing.
Yeah, and like the energy he brought to this episode too, like not that the show is lacking in energy by any means, but it definitely picked it up a step. And I would love to see Rodriguez do another episode uh in a future season. But I would also like to kind of see the show keep this kind of pace and to see, because imagine an episode like The Siege done better with like that Rodriguez sense of, action. And you improve that kind of episode tenfold just having someone that understands how that works. And the action in this, like you were saying, like those wide shots of the stormtroopers and them moving in, and then the geography of, okay, where they at, it all made sense, and it all like flowed perfectly. And then you would have the sense of being surrounded, and then of course Boba Fett almost moving like a like a slasher film villain, just going through and mowing them down one by one. It was just perfect. I want to touch just real briefly on Moff Gideon and I do want to. The Dart Troopers were cool. They were cool. It was cool to see them. I guess we'll see them in actual action soon. But here they just kind of go and scoop up Grogu and and move on. But it was still cool to see him. But yeah, Moff Gideon kind of terrifying with the with the cutesy talk. Like it's like just imagining Gus Fring going and talking to Walter White's baby. Thankfully, a scene that never happened on the show, but imagine how terrifying that would have been. Uh, but now seeing it with Grogu is still terrifying, and him to see him kind of like taunting Grogu with the dark saber is just and him being so playful about it, like, "Oh, you've seen this before." Like, "Oh, this is terrible. This is terrifying." I really it makes that character almost seem a little unhinged. Uh, so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, what what's going to happen next.
Because we still don't know what the big game plan is.
No,
Like, what's
no,
Moff Gideon out to do?
right. What is what is Grogu going to donate? Because he's been identified as the donor. Is that going to be the name of the next episode? Um, who knows? But like, what is he donating? Is M count? Uh, but there's no telling. But it is going to be interesting to see it play out. If I did have one complaint about this episode, it was kind of the build up to the next episode. It just kind of it's like, oh, we're gonna have to, I felt like they could have ended it without going to Navarro. Like we could have just ended with the teaser of Boba Fett joining, the party and Fennec joining the party, so to speak. Because we didn't even, the Razor Crest gets destroyed. We've had problems with it all season. It actually gets blown up in this episode.
Yeah,
So it's kind of sad. A ship that we've pretty much suffered with the entire series. It's always getting messed up. But to see it get straight up blown up was kind of heartbreaking, but still a cool moment. And then, of course, now he's going to get to ride in Slave One, so you can't really complain about that. But um, what I was going to say is that you could have ended on that moment. I didn't think we had to go to Navarro and tease Bill Burr. I mean, maybe we did, but to me, that just kind of felt a little tacked on. That's my only complaint. It was kind of the oh, Bill Burr is going to be in the next episode moment. I was just like, okay, like all right, we could have waited for that, but still, that is the worst thing I have to say about this episode. So it was easily another A plus for me too. I really enjoyed it, and I think I enjoyed it slightly more than the Heiress. I think it's definitely not as good as the Jedi, but I do feel like it's up in that ballpark of one of the best episodes of the series, and a lot of it obviously has to do with just how well they handled Boba Fett in this episode. And you mentioned that Attack of the Clones line. I just think it's so cool that because there were a lot of people that were turned off even in the time of the prequels, that because Boba Fett had so much mystery built around him for decades that there was no definitive backstory or anything about him for a long time. And when Attack of the Clones came out, I think a lot of people were upset about the reveal that, oh, he's just a clone. he's Jango Fett's clone son or whatever, and that kind of took away some of the mystery. But fast forward, we're here, you know, already 20 years removed from Phantom Menace, so coming up on 20 years, an Attack of the Clones. People have come around on the prequels to a big degree, but to I don't think anyone ever said they hated Tamura Morrison as Django Fett, and if they did, they're really weird. But to see him get fully embraced as Boba Fett too, and to have that hearkening to what Django said in Attack of the Clones to really sum up everything. It was very cool, and I really do enjoy that kind of care that they put into it. That it's not okay. We're not just gonna get Boba Fett back for the looks. We're getting Boba Fett back for the character and respecting the prequels and respecting the original trilogy and just respecting Boba Fett in general. And I feel like if people have been fans of the character for a long time and have been waiting for something like this is just you know the perfect uh, taste of what they've been looking for. And if there is a Boba Fett show, if they go through with it, I think it could be pretty great. If depending on what it is, yeah, it would definitely be cool. And I think if this is your backdoor pilot, it's very successful to the fans because they're gonna see this and clamor for it. So yeah, great episode. I'm interested to see where we go from here, but uh, I've slightly expected to get Boba Fett this season, but the way we did, not at all. So this was a very, very pleasant surprise episode.
And plus, I think they did a good job of setting up the end of the season in terms of feeling more natural than season one, where
Yeah,
season one they kind of almost felt like they rushed getting all the characters back. It's like, remember this crew that you've seen
yeah,
previously, and now we're gonna go fetch them.
yeah,
And it wasn't terrible, but just the setup of it wasn't well handled.
right.
And now we're like, oh, Boba Fett's gonna be and Fennec Shand are gonna be along for the ride, and it feels natural that they would be, that they got brought into this tale. And it's all just well executed. And if Rodriguez doesn't come back to direct any more episodes, and I hope he does, because I like seeing him and him be a part of things like that. But if he's not uh, specifically directed, I hope the lessons he brought stick.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, the energy, the pacing, I mean, obviously the action direction in general is really well done, but just his sense of emotiveness, like the is just all right there in this episode to see. He definitely works well in this world. I wouldn't be surprised if he was back for the Boba Fett show,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
if that was going to be his shindig.
Yeah. I would be very open to that too.
Regardless of which, very much looking forward to the next couple episodes and seeing what our pal Rick has in store for Bill Burr and fetching Grogu back. Wonder if Bill Burr will just be immediately slaughtered, like Moff Gideon, chop off his limbs or something, like
I don't know why, but all of a sudden I'm clamoring for a Dave Chappelle impression of Moff Gideon
what?
uh, and killing Bill Burr, who who just used to be on Chappelle's show a lot anyway. So why not have Dave Chappelle dressed up as Moff Gideon and do some kind of ridiculous sketch and and kill Bill Burr? Just random thought, but just would be funny to me, but probably not anyone else. But
We did talk about Kill Bill last
yes.
week, so maybe the Bill is Bill Burr. They're gonna
Kill.
Ahsoka's gonna come back and be like, this character did something to
We're
her in the past.
we're gonna find out.
Everybody wants to kill Bill.
Episode 8's gonna be Quentin Tarantino. Uh,
Yes,
Kill Bill Burr.
and I honestly have no
Oh,
idea what his character's name is. I can't remember.
I can't
It
either,
doesn't
but it's
matter.
just Bill
It's
Burr.
Bill Burr.
Yeah, it's Bill Burr. Yeah.
Another A+ episode.
Yes.
I really do think that uh, again referencing text messages between ourselves. We have a show now,
Right.
as you put it, because it's just the feeling that I've enjoyed this show from the beginning, but wanting to know that the episodes themselves could be good, but also that we had a sense of story momentum and really feeling motivated to continue. Like, oh, this is a world that we're a part of, and wanting to see all that moving forward. Steadily throughout season 2, I felt an improvement, and this was just like a solidification of all those kind of ideas. Man, it was such an exciting episode. Seeing all those ships arriving on Tython,
Yeah.
just Slave One, and then it's like they're back, the Empire.
Right.
Ship after ship arriving for dramatic impact. We'll be back next week. See what else is in store.
Indeed.
In the meantime, my friend, thanks for talking to episodes with me.
Indeed. Pleasure as always.
See you next week on TV Binge Drinking.